BookTube. It's Ros here from Scally Dandling About the Books.
And I'm Tilly from Tilly's Shelf, and we're back for another discussing drama. And we're both giggling slightly because this is the fourth attempt at starting to record this video due to general incompetence. However, we're here now, and we're going to be talking about Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. And the reason we're going to be talking about Twelfth Night is because National Theatre at Home have made their performance available for free for the whole week. So please do go ahead and watch it, because I think it was one of the best performances of Twelfth Night that I've seen. I don't know, what do you think, Ros?
Yes, it definitely was right up there for me of Twelfth Night performances. And the only one that I've seen that I kind of matched up maybe in different ways was one in the Chichester Festival Theatre with Patrick Stewart playing Malvolio.
Yes, yeah, I remember that one. And I think what? Yeah, I remember, because it was played a lot more seriously, wasn't it? I remember his stockings weren't quite as yellow.
Ah,
I got the wrong.
Yeah,
they were yellow, but they weren't like thigh-high yellow crisscrossed right up to the hilt. You know, they were a little bit more restrained.
Can I just say that is a really strange thing to be the main thing that you remember from a performance of Twelfth Night, the colour of the stockings?
Well, it's because the stockings are very important, and you know, all of my memories of different performances of Twelfth Night, kind of, the stockings play a relatively large role. But can I just say that I'm hurt that, you know, in your review of performances of Twelfth Night that meet up to this one, you didn't mention the one at, you know, Van Veen's school in 2010 or whatever, when Duke Orsino was portrayed so excellently by the young Matilda Cook.
Obviously, that was like nearly as good as
absolutely
Theatre.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think I will say that your performance was probably as good as the English touring theatre performance that I saw, from which this is like the programme with the text of the play. So there you go. Does that make you feel better?
Yeah, that does make me feel better.
And definitely 100% better than the performance that I saw in the rain in a kind of a nature reserve in Suffolk.
Yeah, I remember that one as well. That was like my birthday, wasn't it? And it rained all the time, but it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it.
The rain, it raineth every day, you know,
yes.
and we all laughed about that a lot.
Yes. So as you could probably gather from the start of this discussion, Twelfth Night is a play that we know quite well and that we've been to see quite a lot. And that's because it's one of my favourite Shakespeare plays, and probably one of the ones that I know best. Probably joint with King Lear in terms of how well I know them and how much I like them. And yeah, why do I like Twelfth Night so much? That's
heaven only knows, because it's a bit of a strange plot, let's face it.
It's strange. It's got some definite plot holes. Like, why, like, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but why on earth doesn't Viola just say a lot earlier on than she does, oh yeah, this confusion is probably because I have a twin brother, Sebastian? Like, she has a whole scene where she could have said that and she doesn't. It's got plot holes, it's got problems. But what I like about it is that it's so versatile, and so you can play it in so many different ways, because what you start out with and what you end up with is so completely opposed. So you start out with one group that is tragic and serious, and one group that is pure farce, and that's quite common in a Shakespeare comedy. You have like the romantic setup, and then you have the kind of comedic relief, and then when you get to the end of the play, particularly in this version, you have one group that is tragic and serious and one group that is complete farce, but the groups have actually switched positions completely. So the group that started out with, you know, two young women grieving for the loss of their brothers, with, you know, unrequited love and, you know, difficulties of that regard, becomes like everyone getting married to whoever they can lay their hands on, and it's all kind of like comedic and happy and lighthearted. And you've got this group that starts out kind of like dancing around and playing foolish tricks and so on, that at the end they've kind of worked themselves into a problem that they can't get out of, and they're very much at the opposite end, and like dealing with the difficulties of revenge and planning and like where they go from there. So I just like the the way it's not simple compared to another play where, oh, everyone gets married at the end and it's resolved, whereas this one, there's definitely elements that feel very unresolved, and the happy endings you have to question, and the tragic ending you have to think, like, what is going to come on from this, like where does this story go next? So it's not simple and neat and compact, but I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's like you could almost have a sequel to this
Definitely.
one.
Is there some kind of, is there a rumor that it did have a sequel originally, or I thought that, I feel like there was, I feel like I've heard someone say that there's a theory that it has got a second part to it that has been lost, but who knows, you could make up any kind of rumor about Shakespeare, couldn't you?
That's true, but that would make really good sense. I could really imagine that. Yeah,
because there's a few things that are not tied up at the end. One thing that I hadn't really realized was left so loose before was Antonio, and I think I only realized that his storyline was left kind of lost when I saw this version, where they give him a lot more of a role and a lot more of a character, because so Antonio, I don't know how much of the, are we just assuming that everyone knows Twelfth Night?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're talking about something that was written like more than 500 years ago, you know, you're allowed to do a degree of plot spoilers.
No, it's not about spoilers. It's about, if I talk about Antonio, do people need a reminder of who Antonio is? So Antonio is the
yes,
sailor who helps.
I think you do, because one of the things about Shakespeare plays is that like lots of people have really similar names in different plays, and if you haven't read it or seen it for a while, you'll be thinking, which is that the one with Illyria, or is it with Rosalind? Is it?
Yeah, exactly. So Antonio is the sailor who helps out Viola's brother and Sebastian. So Sebastian and Viola are the twins, you know, the twins of Shakespeare's plays, and we're going to talk about twins in a minute, aren't we? And in this version, Antonio and Sebastian have a romantic relationship, which is very much backed up by the play when you read it, because Antonio is constantly making professions of love and affection towards Sebastian in the play, which I think it's supposed to be that it's like a servant to his master, but it definitely reads as you know,
yeah, it totally lends itself to like a really strong kind of gay love subplot.
And they played that so well until it got to the end, when Sebastian marries Illyria and Antonio is just like, he doesn't even say anything, he's just off stage, he's just off in the corner. And I thought, even without adding any lines, they could have shown some kind of reconciliation or some kind of conversation happening between Sebastian and Antonio that would have kind of lent some completion to that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but anyway,
because Antonio kind of like sacrifices himself for Sebastian a couple of times, doesn't he? So it's in keeping that at the end he doesn't say, no, don't marry Illyria, I love you best, you know, I can make you happy. It's in keeping that he doesn't. But yeah, you'd like to just like some sort of reaction would have been good.
Or even, because I got the sense in this version that maybe Sebastian and Illyria realized that they didn't, you know, that it was a kind of a bizarre thing to happen for them to be married, and perhaps Illyria would have given that they, you know, they can't really be married given that he's been married under a name that's not his own name, so you get the feeling that they could have the option of ripping up that marriage and Sebastian and going off with Antonio if he wants to. So yeah, it was just, it left me with questions, but I feel like that's what always happens with Twelfth Night. You always get questions of how's this going to work.
And I think you're right, it's a very, very flexible play, isn't it? And although lots of Shakespeare plays are, you know, it's like when you think of all the different versions of like Hamlet you see or whatever, and you know, you can have Hamlet as you know, grief struck and sort of driven by process of bereavement, or you can have Hamlet this sort of really indecisive and a bit irritating. I mean, there's so many different you know, so I mean, that's why we love Shakespeare, isn't it? Because he lends himself to these multiple interpretations. But with a play like Twelfth Night, it's almost like it's more permissible to mess about with it, because it's such, there's this kind of daft element to the plot, isn't there? So you can try and resolve that a bit by giving a particular interpretation.
And it's also, yes, there's a daft element to the plot, but it's also a plot that is all about kind of disguises and tricks and things not being what they seem. So in a way, playing around with the play as it is in keeping with what the play is about. The play is about, you know, people pretending to be what they're not, and, you know, so yeah, I'm not expressing this clearly, but it's almost like it asks to be messed about with, because it's a play about people messing about with each other.
Yes. Yeah, I know completely. And because it's a play about mistaken identities and disguise and playing tricks on people.
Yeah.
So yes, it does. And is it okay to go on talking about the kind of gender side of things?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Because this particular, Twelfth Night is a play where people cross dress, and that is always so. Viola dresses as a boy or a young man, and Olivia falls in love with him as a young man, and Count Orsino is sort of falling for him when he thinks he's a man, and sort of
he's a bit confused by that.
Confused by why he finds Cesario so attractive, and obviously we know that when they were originally performed, it would have been a double thing, because the Viola character would have been played by a boy, because women weren't allowed, so it was played by a boy who then is playing a girl who then dresses up as a man, and so there's already that kind of multiple layer. And like in with Rosalind and As You Like It, you get another layer, because then the boy playing a woman who's pretending to be a man then pretends to be a woman to you know, it's a Shakespeare thing, so that's great. So it completely gives you permission to kind of muck about with sort of gender and so on. And there've been some like brilliant productions where they've had like all female casts, say, of different Shakespeare plays. You know, it feels very permissible. And that was one of the most enjoyable things about this production, wasn't it? Do you want to explain?
Well, so instead of Malvolio, we had Malvolia, played by Tamsin Greig, who really lent so much to the role and just absolutely nailed it. It was stunning. But we also had a couple of other switches, like there is a servant, Fabian, who becomes a woman. There's also Festa, the clown, becomes a woman as well. And those switches also worked very well, because they made more sense for Illyria to have a household that was made up of women when she is the one who's like forsworn seeing men for 7 years. It just made more sense for her to have that kind of feminine household around her. So like
all her staff are female, basically, which made really good sense. But what was absolutely I really admired this production, and the Malvolia role worked so well for me, because Malvolio is a difficult character to play, isn't it?
Definitely.
Because if you make him kind of pompous and ridiculous in the first half, then that means that when he's gulled, he's tricked by Maria and Belch and Egg-Cheek and so on. You could make it so, it's like he deserves it and he's getting his comeuppance. And I think that's quite a dull version. Sorry?
That's the way I've most often seen it, that he kind of deserves what he gets. I think.
But because what he gets is so extreme, you'd kind of maybe want to move to having some sympathy with him. So, like, say the Patrick Stewart version that we saw, Malvolio, he made him a more nuanced character, so that when he was, tricked and imprisoned and all that in the second half, you felt some sympathy, and you felt it was unreasonable, that like it was a disproportionate level of kind of what was pulled on him, as it were, and that's it was quite cruel, because it is cruel, and it, so and it's not really funny, it's cruel. Now what was so good about this version was that Malvolia at the beginning seems very pompous and pious and all of those things, and actually what they do is that she is actually playing a role all that time, and that when she gets a letter that tells her to sort of like, you know,
be
smile
herself.
and you know, dress up in yellow stockings and be rude to people or whatever, that it's like she's getting a chance to express her true feelings, and that she's been having to play this role of a serious, respectable steward to keep a job, and because she kind of loves Illyria. So it's like,
definitely.
And then that makes it so tragic, the second half, and that scene right at the end, well, and maybe this is a spoiler because we'd like people to watch this, but there's like a moment at the end where she kind of throws off yet another layer of disguise, and you know, your heart breaks for her. You know, she's a woman who is like in love with a woman who does not love her and doesn't really care about her and is quite callous towards her.
And doesn't show a huge amount of sympathy even when she realizes how much she's been wronged. She doesn't really offer her a huge amount of kind of, she doesn't give her anything emotionally at all, whereas you get the feeling that Malvolia has constantly been sort of available to support her in the same way that Antonio and Sebastian have that kind of dynamic, almost that there is one person who kind of benefits from the love, and there's one person who just suffers by it. And Malvolia is definitely the one who suffers, to the extent that it wasn't funny at all, the way that she was treated, that it wasn't, you know, normally there's at least a chuckle, but it became very, very dark and almost quite uncomfortable to watch.
Like watching someone being tortured. And so I think that gave a kind of an emotional depth to this production that you don't get in all productions of Twelfth Night. Some of them are quite, they go for the sort of the fun version, and I appreciate,
which is easy to do. It's quite easy to play it with a bit of slapstick and a bit of, you know, fooling around and stuff.
And because it's one of the many Shakespeare plays that is just so full of really witty lines, isn't it?
And as I was reading it this afternoon, I was just sometimes laughing out loud at little tiny little tricksy lines like, oh, you know, can you read us this poem? It starts, hold your peace. I can't begin if I hold my peace. And just like little detailed lines that just raise a chuckle.
Like kind of, there's a lot of repartee, as it were. And the Toby Belch,
Andrew Aguecheek,
like that, the sort of the humour in those roles was very effective, I thought. I thought, yes, because the actor that well, they're both good comic actors. So
definitely.
And I guess one of the reasons that I appreciated having that extra emotional depth is because the sort of Illyria story, where she's supposed to be like mourning for her brother, and that's supposed to be the sort of set the emotional atmosphere for the play, maybe, I don't know, you assume that is undermined so quickly when she kind of falls for Cesario, that it's always seemed a bit flimsy.
And I think I've seen it before where Illyria is played as maintaining a sort of dignity even when she does start kind of falling for Cesario and running around after him. She's still played as the kind of like calm, reserved lady who somehow also has this passionate underlayer. But in this version, she becomes just, I mean, like I said, she becomes the comic relief, and they become very kind of foolish and wearing brightly coloured clothes and sort of playing around, which, like, it doesn't fit with this idea of her as being sworn to mourn for 7 years.
One of the problems with that for me, and that's one of my sort of few criticisms of this production really, is that she's quite raunchy and physical with with Viola in the form of Cesario. So and then again with Sebastian, when Sebastian turns up, and you're supposed to believe that she thinks that they're the same person. Now, like, even if people look similar and they're wearing the same clothes and all of that, like, when you get really physically close to someone, they smell different, they feel different, the texture of their skin is different. So that kind of slightly threw me, I think.
Yeah, but at a certain point, when people are pretending that twins are getting confused with one another, you do have to sort of suspend disbelief slightly. I think you have to allow them. They're working with the text of the play.
It's a favourite device of Shakespeare. Is the twins getting mixed up for each other, or is a kind of standard Shakespeare device. And I guess I knew, but I hadn't really thought properly about the fact that he had twins.
Yeah.
Himself. So I just read the book Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which is kind of about his son Hamnet, who dies of the plague, and and Anne Hathaway, and Hamnet is a twin. And he has he's a non-identical twin. He has a twin sister, and that's really kind of significant in the book, because the story that she gives is that like, Shakespeare is summoned back because his Judith, the girl, is ill with the plague, and that Hamnet almost takes his sister's place and takes the plague onto himself so that she will live. And that when he arrives to find the dead child, he thinks that it's his daughter, not his son, initially. So that it kind of plays with that sort of getting your two twins mixed up.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really, really clever touch to put in the novel, because it plays out in so many of the plays, doesn't it?
So it makes you wonder when he was using his twin devices, as opposed, like, compared to when he had his twins, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
to look into,
basically pretty much all the plays were written after the children were born.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what else did we want to say? I wanted to talk about bears and bear baiting.
Bears. To do that. Bears. Yeah. We've had cross-dressing gender. We've had twins. Time for bears. When in bears?
There's no bears in this play. Nobody exits pursued by or otherwise. But I did notice when I was reading this afternoon that there's quite a few references to bears, to the point where it becomes unusual and it becomes a little bit like, what's going on here? So Andrew Aguecheek says, maybe I should have spent less time bear baiting and more time on the arts. And then Fabian says, I've got into trouble with my mistress over bear baiting. And then at one point where Viola is being challenged to a duel, I think Sir Toby Belch says, she looks as nervous as if she's being pursued by a bear. And there's a couple of others that I didn't, memorize, but I just thought that actually that is kind of a theme of the play, in that it's about people tricking and teasing and, like, joking with something that is actually very dangerous, and actually they possibly don't have the full concept of what it is that they're dealing with, and they're kind of only risking teasing it because it's chained up. And in a way, Malvolio is the bear, because people don't realize what they're doing until they've got themselves in a little bit too deep and perhaps got the bear a little bit too angry. So anyway, that was just a little thought that I had as I was reading. And also just the idea of playing tricks and disguises, and, like, Viola a couple of times says, I can't resolve this issue anymore, time has got to resolve this, because I didn't realize what a problem I would be causing by putting myself into disguise. So whether you've thought out the consequences of your actions as well.
And she absolutely, because she's put herself into disguise because she's, like, mourning for, she thinks Sebastian is dead, and the last thing she was expecting was to fall for Count Orsino. She
just didn't predict what could possibly happen, and the last, even later thing that she would have expected would be that somebody would fall in love with her dressed as a man. Like, there's just so many aspects that she didn't even consider, that then leaves her with a lot of problems. But yeah.
So, are we recommending that people try and catch this on the National Theatre before it finishes on Thursday?
Yes, definitely. The other thing that I would say that I really liked about this production, if I may, is the use of space. And that is a thing that the National Theatre is absolutely brilliant for, because they have just a fantastic stage. And it rotates. And this one, it had a flight of stairs in it into the middle of the set. So there was a lot of use of kind of like different height and using the stairs and scene boards to create different rooms, and the rotation of the thing bringing concurrent scenes into the same space. And I thought that was just fantastic. So that's why it's always good to see something at the National Theatre, because there's not many stages that are that good.
Yes. Yeah.
As a physical space, I mean.
Yeah. Although, having said that, this is absolutely a play that stands up perfectly to being performed with really basic equipment. You know, you can do it in a field successfully, and it's
or you can do it in a drama room with a couple of blocks and a few colourful scarves.
And you did.
Yeah, you don't need fancy equipment to make this sort of funny or interesting.
Because it's all about the words, people.
Yeah.
All about the words. Nobody does words better.
Yeah.
Even if some of the plots and characters are a bit like kind of...
So do we have anything else, or should we wrap up?
I think we could wrap up, because we'd rather that people went away and
watch the
play before it goes off. Yeah.
And I feel like I should say, as we're mentioning National Theatre at Home frequently, and they're doing this as a fundraising thing, because the theatres aren't open and they're not able to, gain money through ticket sales and all of the other things that they would be selling if you were going to the theatre. So if like me, you're finding the National Theatre at Home as like a highlight of every week of lockdown, then the option is there if you wanted to support them. But they'll tell you that the moment you go over there.
They will. They don't need you to plug that for them, but it's fair enough.
Okay.
And
next week,
I
don't want to exploit them.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, and there's going to be 2 versions.
No.
There's 2 versions.
2 versions. I didn't realise there was going to be 2 versions.
Yeah, so they're doing it concurrently. There's one where Benedict Cumberbatch is the scientist, and one where he's the Beast.
Yes.
And I can't remember what the name of the other actor is, but they switch roles basically.
And until about 5 seconds ago, I could remember the name of the other actor, but now I'm suddenly on the spot. It's gone out of my head. He's another really good, really well-known actor that you will really want to see. And yes, they did it. They took turns each night, like they swapped who did which role, didn't they? I think. Yeah. Gosh, does that mean we have to watch it twice then? I hadn't kind of quite tweaked that. That's true.
I think we do have to watch it twice.
Yeah, but actually, I can watch any amount of Benny Duck Bimberbatch.
Yeah, but the trouble is, I hate Frankenstein as a story. So what I could do is I could watch the first half with one way round, and then the second half the other way round, or something.
Good thinking. Okay, shall we stop?
Yeah. Okay.
Farewell.
Thank you for watching, everybody.
And give us some comments if you love Twelfth Night, and especially if you've seen this production.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.